Well, good morning. Happy Tuesday. I'm hoping that you have sound this morning. Put it in the comments, either yes or no, if you have sound. Um, I, uh, I just am not sure what is going on, and every once in a while, it's either the computer, my hardware, my software, or the program, and it looks to me as if everything is working. I think I found out what the problem was yesterday, which was a different problem, which what it was a week ago. Yes, we have sound. Yes, thank you so much. All right. Well, happy Tuesday to you, man. So this is like Monday. So we have to talk about what happened over the weekend. Just really briefly, we had. What was it? It was the Christkindl Market on Saturday. That went, whatever, from 2 to 7. And it was a wonderful event. We had about 700 people that showed up. There were probably, over 50 volunteers. There was just a tremendous number of people that helped out with this event. And I don't know if you've been to these types of markets. They have them in German villages. They have them, there's one in Chicago. The one in Chicago has a standard design for all the booths. It's a wooden booth with a red and white canopy. And the problem with the one in Chicago, well, there's two problems with one in Chicago. The one in Chicago is cold, frigid cold. So the line that you want to be in is the hot chocolate line. Or the roasted almonds or the roasted chestnuts. So you can hold roasted chestnuts in your hand and eat them. The problem is, though, that the number of people that go to this thing is outrageous. And the last time I went, there were so many people you couldn't move. It was just like we're all standing there. It's like everybody comes in, stands there, and nobody can move. So you're looking around saying, this is crazy. Why am I here? So a Christkindl Market can be awesome until it gets overcrowded, and then it's a problem. The last time we did Trunk or Treat at Cienega High School, we tried to make it as a big of an event as possible. I mean, we normally get like 700 to 1,000 people. I think this year we had, the last year we did it at Cienega was like 2,500 people that came to Trunk or Treat. And it was a great event, but there were so many people that the people that did come are like, this is too busy. So it's really it's one of those things that you really have to balance. I mean, I think 1,000 people is about the limit that you want. And if it gets over that, I think the people start to, stand in line too long and whatchamacallit. So the little events like this are great for the community because, if our community is 12,000 people, that's 10% of the community. So that's pretty good. All right. So let's talk about, Christkindl Market had, it had food. It was great German food, and we had Ukrainian food. There was stuff on the stage. There were vendors. There was the I don't know what you call her, the Christkindl angel handing out a bell. It was just a really, really, really nice event. And I think the people that came really, really enjoyed it. It's a free event, which, we could charge money for it. There's absolutely no question you could charge, $3 to $5 a person. And we've done that for Vale Preservation Society, parts of the Colossal Fourth. But the thing is that it doesn't, part of doing it is to give back to the community, to provide stuff for the community. There's not a lot of stuff in Vale. And, the moment you start charging for everything, then people have to make the decision if they're going to go or not, which isn't a bad thing. But I don't think you really make enough money to really cover the people who set up the booths and buy stuff. I mean, that's enough of a cover charge for that. So free stuff is good. And then on Sunday, there was the Christmas tea. And the Christmas tea this year was beautiful. There was music. There were these tables that were finely decorated with all these wonderful desserts, and the people had a great time. And the Christmas tea is also a great way to start celebrating Christmas. So I think that those two events, and they were in the same weekend, which means if you're going to both events, you end up having a very, very, very long weekend. And I'm so grateful for all the people that helped in every aspect of that thing. The Chris Kindle Market we put up a huge tent. It's probably 40 by 20, maybe. And so this huge tent takes a lot of labor to put up. It probably takes an hour for 10 people to put up this tent, which isn't outrageous, but it is really a great tent. It kind of marks off the space, and you put tables under it, and you can put space heaters around and everything. I mean, it just really, the whole weekend, but it's one long weekend, but when it's all done, it's done. And then you can do other stuff for Christmas. And then last night, one of my favorite artists came into town. His name is Michael W. Smith. I don't know if you've heard of him, but the first time I saw Michael W. Smith, I took my parents to see Amy Grant, who was my favorite artist growing up. I believe I was a freshman in college or a sophomore in college, and there was a theater in Phoenix called Celebrity Theater. It was a theater in the round, believe it or not. And so we went to Celebrity Theater, and Amy Grant came. And there was this guy touring with Amy Grant. His name was Michael W. Smith. And he did a couple songs by himself. And I'm like, oh, wow, this guy's going to go places. I think it was his first year that he toured with Amy Grant that I saw him. And then we saw him last night in concert at the Linda Ronstadt Theater. And it was just really a great concert. He had 3 vocalists. He had another young lady who lives in Nashville, who's a Christian artist, touring with him. And then a band of probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 other people. They had bagpipes and penny flute, the Irish flute. So I mean, it was just a delightful concert. He did some of his, like 1 or 2 of his old numbers, 3 or 4 of his other numbers, some Christmas songs. He did some big epic. I guess he's always wanted to write music for soundtracks for movies. And so he's written some music, and he has recorded with the Irish Philharmonic some of these movie scores, or these big epical things. And so he played a couple of those. And I mean, it's just a wide variety. He's a very talented, very, very talented man. I took Jennifer to see him once, and he sweat on Jennifer as he passed by, and I think she didn't wash for like a year. It's like, that's his sweat. Jennifer really, really, really likes Michael W. Smith, and I don't blame her. I mean, he's quite a talented musician, so anyway, I like him. I like Amy Grant. I think they're very, very close still. She's coming into town in the spring, and we're debating. We said, let's see how it goes with Michael W. Smith, and we'll see if we're going to go see Amy Grant. I would love to see Amy Grant. There was a push for Compassion. He's done this at every concert. He's big into Compassion International, which is sponsoring a child. Compassion International is through the local churches of these small third world, or any third world country. And you sponsor a child, and the child, $50 a year buys, or $50 a month buys food for that child, medical care for that child, and you sponsor a child. And it's really a great opportunity to show God's love in the third world country. So anyway, let's see, and let's see. Let's go ahead and get into our birthdays. We have no birthdays today, so I'm going to close it out. Let me see. Is sound working? Yes, sound is working, and it seems like people are. Oh, the solo was beautiful to T. Thank you so much. Those were the days, and you know who you were then. We had a little song thing on Sunday. All right. I think we're ready to get into our study. We are in Hebrews chapter 11, which was written to people who are undergoing persecution. And whenever you're going through difficulties in your life, what are you going to cling to? You can cling to your own capabilities. You can cling to family. You can cling to friends. All of those are helpful. But for me, what I have found the most helpful is to cling to faith. And that is the point of chapter 10 and 11, is to talk about faith. The faith is one of those things that helps you as you go through trials and tribulations, and particularly persecution. So in chapter 11, the author of Hebrews is talking about various people of faith and how God used their faith. And we're going to just talk about that now. And we ended up in chapter 11, verse 6. So now we're in verse 7. So let's just start reading in verse 7 and see where it takes us. By faith, Noah, when warned about things not yet seen, in holy fear, built an ark to save his family. By his faith, he condemned the world and became heir of the righteousness that is in keeping with faith. So we all know the story of Noah. God came to him and said, I want you to build an ark. Bill Cosby said, what's an ark? And so Noah had to explain it to him. And he says, it's going to be so many cubits long. And Noah said, what's a cubit? A cubit, of course, is from here to here on your it's from the tip of your fingers to your elbow. That's a cubit, about 18 inches. And Noah built the ark. And it's not just that Noah built the ark. It's Noah had faith to build the ark. God came to him and said, this is what I want you to do. And Noah looked around him and said, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. Why would I do that? And God says, I'm going to flood the world. And so I want you to build an ark. And the people came and, mocked him. And Noah was faithful and continued to build the ark. And then the rains came. And because Noah had built the ark, he and his family and the animals survived. So it is not wise when God tells you to do something, you got to do it. This is a story of faith that not only saved Noah's life, but it makes you wonder how many times God nudges us to do something, and we just have to be faithful to say, yes, I will do that, Lord. There are times in your life when you are absolutely convinced that God is telling you to do something. And it is not wise to go against God, not only because going against God is going to go bad for you, but also the blessings that come from it. If God tells you to do something, it's like, I don't know if I have the strength to do it, but then you do it, and you see that it works out well. The blessing is that your faith grows. You know that you're willing to step out in faith for God, and so it strengthens your faith and it strengthens your relationship with God. And these are the things that we do as followers of Jesus Christ, because pretty much all the things that are required in Scripture, following the 10 Commandments, Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, the thing, love your neighbor, all these things that God calls us to do, love your enemies. They are opportunities for us to strengthen our faith, to grow in our faith, and to draw closer to God. And so it's one of those things that you just don't really see it until you do it. I'm always reminded of that picture of Indiana Jones in one of his movies where he has to cross this big, huge chasm, and He knows that he just has to step out. And so he steps out, and it turns out that there's a beam there that he can't see. And so he gets some dirt and he throws it over the beam and he goes, oh, okay. But he would never have known that if he just didn't have the faith to step out. I think this is the one where he has to find the chalice for his dad. Which one is that? It's the last one, the last crusade. Yeah, where the crusade person is still alive. Faith is so remarkable. Faith is so remarkable. Noah found that out. Who else found that out? Let's go to verse 8. By faith, Abraham, when called to go to a place he would later receive as his inheritance, obeyed and went, even though he did not know where he was going. By faith, he made his home in the promised land like a stranger in a foreign country. He lived in tents, as did Isaac and Jacob, who were heirs with him of the same promise. For he was looking forward to the city with foundations, whose architects and builder is God. And by faith, even Sarah, who was past childbearing age, was enabled to bear children because she considered him faithful who had made the promise. And so from this one man, and from this one man, and he as good as dead, came descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and countless as the sands on the seashore. All right, so we get the story of Abraham. Now, the interesting thing about the story of Abraham, we don't remember this, but God came to Abraham. He was living in Ur, and he says, I want you to go to the land of Canaan. And so Abraham picked up his family and he moved quite a long distance to go into the promised land. It's not something that we think about for Abraham, or that Sarah had a child, or that there were numerous. I mean, what is the story of faith that we think about for Abraham? It's that he was called to sacrifice his son Isaac, this child that finally came after years and years and years of pleading with God for a child. It's not even mentioned in here, which is so curious. Like, why wouldn't you mention the number one faith story? And part of the reason is that it's a difficult faith story, that God would ask you to sacrifice your child and that you'd be willing to go through with it because God told you to do it. I mean, talk about stepping out in faith. I think a lot of people, and by the time of Jesus, or by the time of the writing of Hebrews, that story, that faith story, is not helpful for most people because most people don't have that kind of faith. We think we have that kind of faith. Would you be, but think of it. Would you today, if God came to you and said, I want you to kill the person you love the most, or the person you've been wanting the most, would you do it? You'd say, well, God would never ask me to do that. Let's pray he doesn't. Would you? But if God came to you and you were absolutely convinced it was God, would you be willing to do it? And the answer is, for most of us, pretty much all of us, is no. We know too much about God's law now, that thou shalt not kill. We know too much about the faith of other people. People would, if I killed my child or the person I loved the most, I'd be put into jail, rightfully so. They'd think I'm crazy. And so by the time of Jesus, this story, there were so many rabbis and philosophers in the Jewish system that debated this story to see what the lessons were for this story. Because if the lesson is have faith in God, there's different ways to talk about how Abraham had faith in God. So it's just not a helpful story. I think that's why he doesn't add it, is because it had been debated and debated and debated. Kierkegaard, in his writings, one of his most famous writings starts out with the story of Abraham and Abraham's faith, and looks at God as this cruel tyrant to ask Abraham to sacrifice his son. A lot of people see this as a strength of faith, but Kierkegaard sees it as a picture of a God who is just cruel. And maybe the first century Jews saw it that way also. So that's why he doesn't include it. You don't need the sacrifice of Isaac to show that Abraham had faith. There's other ways to show that Abraham and his family had faith. So that's what he goes to. Verse 13, all these people are still living by faith when they died. They did not receive the things promised. They only saw them and welcomed them from a distance, admitting that they were foreigners and strangers on earth. People who say such things show that they are looking for a country of their own. If they had been thinking of the country they had left, they would have had the opportunity to return. Instead, they were longing for a better country, a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a city for them. So the whole idea of moving from the land that you live to go to a promised land by God, that takes an incredible amount of faith when you think about it. Remember when we lived in Phoenix, and one summer it was really, really hot. It was so hot they closed down the airport. And my beloved wife, who I love more than anything else in this world, said, it is too hot to stay here in Arizona. And I don't know if God heard her prayer. Probably, because when she prays, God listens. It's like E.F. Hutton. But within that year, the boss I was working for said he wanted to open up an office, a branch office of our Phoenix firm in either Denver or San Diego. So we went to San Diego. We had gone to San Diego to look at it at one point, just to drive around. We had a vacation in San Diego, and it was nice. San Diego's a nice place. And so I tried to get registered in my professional registration in California. And this was back before the internet. And so you write to them and you ask, what is it that we need to do to get registered? And they send you this packet of information. They tell you what to study. I studied all that information, went to take the test. And everything I studied was not on the test. They had changed dramatically everything. So by the time I went to take the test, I did not pass the test. And so then this is a true story. So then we had the opportunity. It's like, well, if you'd like to see the test and what you got right, what you got wrong, you can come to California in such and such a date. You can look at the test. And I said, okay, if I'm going to pass the test, at least I have to go and figure out, what I studied wrong, which books I didn't take with me to pass the test. So I went to California. This is the wild part. There were two parts to the test. The first part was a written test of multiple choice answered, and they gave you one of those forms, the blank forms that you filled in the circles. They gave you that, and then there was the written portion of the test where you answered all the questions and you showed your work, about half and half. So there were probably 100 guys waiting in the lobby, and they were going to show us, they were going to get us into the room like at 9 o'clock in the morning. This is in California, so I had to take a day off work to go look at this. So I go to California, and we sit in the lobby at 9 o'clock, and at 9 o'clock, nothing happens. And we're sitting there like, what in the world? So finally, 10 o'clock comes, and they let us into the room, and they called us by name, and I go up by name, and they hand me the bubble diagram of the how I answered the test. And so I pick up the bubble diagram, and I'm sitting there at my desk with my bubble answer, and I'm waiting for them to give us the questions so we could compare, what went right, because there was no markings on the sheet. No, there were no markings on the sheet. And then they said, okay, there you go. And we're like, what do you mean, there we go? And they said, this is what we can show you. And we're like, what do you mean this is what you can show? I mean, you graded our tests, yes, but we can't show you that. Well, what about the questions that go with this bubble sheet? Oh, we can't show you that either. What can you show us? Well, you can look at the sheet. There's no marks on the sheet. It's just A, B, C, D, E with marks on it. And they said, that's all we're legally allowed to show you. And we're like, but we came all the way from various parts of the world to come look at this, and all you're going to show us is the answer sheet with the bubbles marked A, B, C, D, E. That's it? They said, that's all we can show you. So we all left in a huff, and I went back to my boss and I said, I am never, ever, ever going to work in California. They're the most incompetent place you could possibly imagine. So we ended up opening up an office in Denver, and we moved into Denver. Anyway, but the point is that it takes a lot of faith to move, even when you know you're going to have a job because you're called there by a job. But just, pick up a place that's comfortable and move to a place that you've never been to, where the weather's different, where the culture's different. One more story. I know it's getting late, but I moved to Denver and I had to send a fax. And this was back, when in the 80s, computers, or no, it was in the early 90s. Computers and internet were just starting to become available. So there was no such thing as Google Map. So I had to figure out where to send a fax. And I looked up either on the phone book or online all these locations, but I had no idea where these locations were. None of them looked familiar. I just moved into Denver. And so I found a Kinko's that was close, and I drove to Kinko's. It was like 10 miles away to send a fax. Today, you'd get on the internet and say, well, you wouldn't send a fax today, but if you did, you get on the internet and say, where's the closest place to send a fax? And it would tell you, because that information is readily available now. But back then it wasn't. It was very, very, all those things are challenges. To move to a new location is always a challenge. Can you imagine what it must have been like for Abraham and all these people of faith to leave the place where God had birthed them to say, I want you to go to a different place. I want you to go to the promised land. It is a big deal. And Abraham was faithful in doing that. And many people of faith were doing that. All right. And then, then, of course, we do get into the story about Abraham sacrificing Isaac. But it's not just Isaac. That's the point. All right. So we'll leave it there. And let's see. Let's close in prayer. Gracious God, thank you so much for this day. Continue to build our faith. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so let me go back over here. Thank you, all of you, for joining. Oh, my solo to Christmas tea was beautiful. Yeah. Thank you for that. All right, so I hope you have a great day, and hope it goes well for you. It looks like everything's working, and so we have to keep checking this every morning before we go online, but we'll do that. All right, take care. God's blessings. Bye.